As the episode begins, we see Colonel Beckett traveling back to 2001 to meet Dr. Josh Mandel, a physician responsible for accidentally causing a global epidemic. This plague has wiped out a massive number of humans on the planet, limiting the remaining humans to survive underground. The military has been using its finite resources to send men back to the past to eliminate the people responsible for the spread of the disease. This is why Beckett meets with Dr. Mandel, whom he poisons once inside his office. While Dr. Mandel exhibits signs of cardiac arrest, Beckett exits the hospital. When he sees a truck approaching, he finds it to be the best opportunity to open the portal without getting noticed by the public. He jumps into the vortex just in time before colliding with the truck, and in the next scene, he is back in 2015, his original timeline. However, despite his efforts, the fate of the world has not changed, as the outbreak is still at large and the death toll keeps increasing. One of the seniors, Quisling, accuses Beckett of messing up the process, but he assures them that he saw Dr. Mandel's death with his own eyes before returning to the future. As it happens, Dr. Mandel was the carrier of one of the 3 DNA fragments of the Gehenna strain, the deadly virus responsible for the worldwide plague. The general and Beckett deduce that Dr. Mandel must have passed the strain onto their patient 0 before the time frame they selected to poison him, which is why they failed to save the world. Quisling does not approve of siphoning their already limited resources for time traveling, as it consumes quite a lot of energy. However, since this is their only chance for survival, he reluctantly informs the general that they can manage 3 more time jumps before completely running out of resources. They decide to send Beckett back to an earlier time where he can assassinate their patient 0 before they unknowingly cause the greatest downfall for the human race. While the scientists try to figure out who their patient 0 is, we see Beckett training for his upcoming mission. Moments later, his roommate and friend, Colonel Faber, walks in with their tray of food. Bored out of his mind for eating the same thing every day due to rationing, he reminisces about the good old days before the virus changed everything. When he mentions Beckett's wife, Beckett becomes upset. Faber returns Beckett's wedding band that he had been holding for him. As Faber walks out of the room, Beckett looks at his wedding ring with tear-streaked eyes, as it reminds him of his late wife Sarah and daughter Catherine, who succumbed to the viral plague. Just then, the general visits him, bringing him information about their patient 0, who is a woman named Amy Barrett. They assign Beckett to terminate both Amy and the physician to prevent the plague. When they leave, Faber offers to switch places with Beckett when he senses his discomfort of targeting a woman, but Beckett refuses and prepares for his mission. While handing over the necessary items, Quisling briefs him about the mission and strictly advises him not to deviate from the plan to avoid any loopholes or altered outcomes. Faber wishes his friend good luck, while Beckett hands over his wedding band to him yet again for safekeeping. If all goes well this time, he might be returning to his wife and daughter, which is everything Beckett wishes for. With that, Beckett steps inside the time portal and is instantly teleported back in time. In the next scene, Beckett traces Amy and follows her. Because of Beckett, another man accidentally dumps his coffee on her, so she walks back home to change instead of going to the movies with her friend. Naturally, Beckett follows her, and when they reach a parking lot, he brings out his poison-laced glove to get on with his mission. However, a nearby alarm goes off, and 2 thieves crash their car into an unsuspecting Beckett, who loses the glove and falls to the ground. Hearing the commotion, Amy rushes to his help. She insists on getting help for him, but he refuses, telling her that all he needs is a place to rest. Beckett tries to find the glove but is unsuccessful due to his pain. Out of kindness, Amy decides to take him to her apartment nearby, which she says she shares with her boyfriend. Once they get there, Amy helps him into a chair and proceeds to call an ambulance, but Beckett stops her, saying that he feels way better. He asks her to bring him her first aid kit, while he undresses to expose his wound. While Amy tends to his wound, Beckett looks around her apartment and spots a piano, which instantly floods his brain with memories of his daughter happily playing the piano before the plague turned their lives upside down. He couldn't help but remember how the government officials took his daughter away when she got infected, and he could not do anything to save her. Later, his wife also contracted the disease and eventually passed away. Amy notices his interest in the piano and tells him that she bought it for her husband, Billy. She offers to clean the cut on his head, but he doesn't let her, so she asks him to stay the night so he can recover. Apparently, she lives alone and was lying earlier about living with a boyfriend. She orders Chinese food for the 2 of them, something that Beckett hasn't had for a long time. Amy tries to strike up a conversation despite Beckett shutting her off with minimal responses every time. She shows him a picture of Billy, who died in a car crash some months ago. Beckett realizes that the poor girl has had her fair share of tragedies, so he opens up a little and talks about how he lost his wife to an incurable disease. Later, he plays the piano, much to Amy's amusement, because she didn't think a tough guy like him could actually play a decent tune. She then talks about Billy's accident, about how she went from contemplating getting a gun to finally forgiving the very apologetic drunk driver who crashed into Billy. As it gets late, Beckett asks permission to sleep on her couch and she agrees, even though it feels a little odd to her about having a stranger in her home at night. In the next scene, Beckett feels extremely conflicted about executing the mission since Amy has shown him nothing but kindness. However, since he would give anything for a chance to be reunited with his family again, he grabs a knife from the kitchen and heads toward Amy's room. When he sees her sleeping safely in her bed, it reminds him of his wife's final moments, and at that point, he decides against killing her. In the morning after, Amy mentions getting late for her doctor's appointment and reveals she is pregnant. Hearing that, Beckett decides to walk her to her doctor's clinic. Meanwhile, back in the future, the authorities are worried about Beckett missing his jump window, which shows that the mission has been compromised. In order to carry on his friend's mission, Faber volunteers to go back in time and put an end to the origin of the pandemic. He travels through time and lands in the very alley where Beckett landed earlier. While he begins his mission to find out about Beckett and patient zero, we see Beckett and Amy walking toward the clinic. When Beckett notices Dr. Mandel's name outside the clinic, he knows he has to prevent Amy from making contact with him, which would otherwise lead to the epidemic. He warns Amy against going into that clinic, but when he notices Dr. Mandel pull up in the parking, he rushes Amy inside. Then, he makes sure that Dr. Mandel calls in sick that day by threatening and scaring him away. Unbeknownst to him, Faber is watching him through a safe distance. While Dr. Mandel scurries away, Beckett decides to return to Amy, but catches a glimpse of Faber, so he walks up to him. When Faber inquires about Beckett missing his jump window and the target still roaming alive, Beckett explains that he can prevent the plague if he stops Amy from making any contact with the carriers of Gehenna strain fragments. Faber offers to kill patient zero for him, but Beckett requests him as a friend to spare Amy's life since she does not deserve to die. Faber agrees, but informs Beckett that he will be returning in 4 hours to finish what he started, so he better have made progress by then. As Faber leaves, Beckett rushes inside the clinic and tries to leave with Amy, but once outside, Amy demands answers. Finally, giving in, he tells her that he is from the future to save mankind from a deadly plague. He then shows her his phone, which has proof of the entire epidemic, which started as a viral infection and progressed to a worldwide plague, taking over 500 million lives in just 2 months. He tells her that it took world-class scientists 14 years to figure out how the plague started, which was when 3 fragments of a certain virus found themselves in patient zero's body. Next, he holds his phone in her face, which shows a picture of Amy. When Amy realizes that she is the one responsible for more than 3 billion deaths, she starts running away in disbelief. Beckett reassures her that he means no harm and that the reason why he prevented her appointment with Dr. Mandel that morning was to keep her from contracting his DNA strand. Without contact with other carriers, there would be no virus and hence no plague in the future. Next, they go back to her apartment, and once Amy is composed, she decides to celebrate saving the world with Beckett, as he still has 2 hours till he returns to his timeline. After she leaves to get some food, someone knocks at the door. Beckett assumes it's Amy, but it is actually Faber, who tells Beckett to accompany him since they are almost out of time. Beckett is shocked when he learns that even though he prevented Amy's contact, the plague did happen in the future. However, this time, patient zero is Beckett himself as he came into contact with all 3 carriers in his effort to protect Amy. It doesn't take him long to figure out that Faber has been sent to kill him before he becomes contagious and spreads the virus. They walk into an alley, not knowing that Amy is following them. There, Beckett accepts his fate and lets Faber administer a fatal dose of poison to him in order to save the world. In his final moments, Beckett sees flashbacks of his wife and daughter, while Faber helps him walk through the time portal which transports them back to 2015. With Beckett's sacrifice, the plague never happened, and the human race thrives. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Watch the next videos on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.